Good morning and welcome everybody. Some of you know my name is Karima Ramchi. I serve as Associate Director of International Indigenous and Accessibility at University of Victoria's Co-operative Education Program and Career Services. It is indeed my pleasure to welcome you all to the last session of our week-long symposium. I'd like to start by acknowledging with respect the Lekwungen peoples, which includes the Songhees and Kwesepsum peoples, on whose territory the University of Victoria stands, and the Lekwungen and Wasanish peoples, whose relationships to the land continue to this day.
Whoops.
This session is titled Best Practices for Hiring Recent Graduates, presented by members of our Career Services team, Joy Andrews and Ailsa Campbell. As always, please submit your questions in the chat, and the team will address them. With that, I'll pass it on to Joy and Ailsa. Please take us away through the grand finale.
Thank you so much, Karima. Hello, everybody. And I'd like to start by introducing my colleague, Ailsa Campbell. Ailsa is the welcoming face of our Career Services team, supporting students to access our services so that they can prepare to graduate career ready. And she also administers the career and general job postings to support you as employers to post jobs to attract recent graduates to your opportunities. Ailsa, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And my name, as Karima said, is Joy Andrews. I am a nationally certified career development professional. I am a graduate of UVic. I'm an alum of UVic. I did my undergraduate degree here, and I also hold a master's degree in adult education. I have been serving as a career educator here since 2012, and I work with students in the humanities, fine arts, and education faculties, and I work closely with the rest of the team of career educators. And each program at UVic has assigned career educators to work with them. And we keep ourselves up on the latest labor market information in our areas so that we can support students to develop their careers while they are studying and going on to graduate and have successful careers going forward. So that's what we do here in Career Services. So today's session is about best practices for hiring recent graduates. And you as employers are the folks that know your particular hiring practices the best. And so what I did is I set about to share some best practices about our particular graduates. How can you attract our graduates? How can you make sure that wonderful candidates are applying to your opportunities, and do a selection process that helps them be successful and you be successful in hiring the stars that you want in your organization. So I thought we could start here. And we're not a huge crowd. I wasn't sure how many people that we would be having at the session, but I would still love to ask you to answer this Slido survey. So where does your organization sit in this lineup? This is how we define the size of businesses for various purposes. And would yours be a micro, a small business, a medium, or a large? And by business, we're meaning any organization, whether it's a private, a not-for-profit, governmental organization, or a post-secondary. And I see that, okay, we have some folks here representing medium-sized businesses. That's great. And as far as I can see at this point, we don't have small business here, but it's interesting because a huge percentage of employment opportunities in British Columbia are created by small business. So we here at Co-op and Career are delighted to work with employers of all size and nature of organization to partner with you. And so then what I did is I put together some guidelines that you can use to guide your next steps for attracting qualified graduates. So one is building your brand, right? Letting students and graduates know who you are and why they would want to work with you. Using a competency-based model allows you to assess a wide range of graduates to see whether they could be qualified for the type of jobs that you're offering, and it allows them to show their strengths and let them shine. Also, knowing what qualifications you actually need. Sometimes we have a job posting and we think, oh, I need to have a business student or a business graduate do this job. And if you sit back and analyze what you really need the student to do, you might find that you can broaden that to attract a broader range of graduates to your opportunity. And we'll have some examples about that as we go forward. And then also connecting with students before graduation. This is a really successful strategy that many of our employer partners use to sort of set them up for success in hiring graduates. And we'll go into that during the session today. So I'd like to now hear from you again. And what can recent graduates contribute to your business or organization? So here's another short survey, and this is, put in there whatever words or phrases are sort of important to you, what you feel a recent graduate could contribute to your organization to help in the achievement of your goals and the success of your business or organization. Yeah, energy. Definitely. New graduates are keen and ready to go out there. New ideas. Yes, they've been studying all kinds of interesting theory and knowledge and new perspectives. I love that. And the ability to think critically and use all of this knowledge and energy is something that we often hear about our students. At UVic, our students have many opportunities to gain experience, hands-on experience while they're studying. And so their ability to use that energy, those ideas, use technology, yes, and the latest research. Thank you very much for those ideas. And I'm sure you also have many more. All right, so let's get right into how do we make these guidelines a reality within your business? How do you connect with recent UVic graduates? So we want to make sure you have clear, purpose-driven job postings. When I meet with graduates who are going out for their first career job at graduation, one of the most important things is that they want to make a difference. They want to use their strengths and they really want to make a difference. And so what you want to put into your job posting is how will this student be able to contribute and what impact can they have through their particular work. So one of the reasons that I've put this particular picture up here, this is a picture of Alistair on a co-op work term. And I would like you to take a moment and just think, what degree do you think that Alistair graduated with? You can pop it in the chat if you want to, or just think it in your head. I'm just going to give everybody a minute to make an assumption. And then I'm going to surprise you by saying that Alistair graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy. Alistair is a very successful communicator, critical thinker. He had such passion for environmental sustainability that he created his own co-op work term and worked as their communications and public relations marketing person to help the business grow and thrive. Upon graduation, he was hired by that business, and that's where he has started his career. So this is one of the stories I wanted to share with you to let you know that you want your job postings to be clear and make it clear to the student what they're going to be doing so they can show you how they can really contribute to your organization's success. And now to look into how that can be achieved, I have created a job posting. So I used, in all transparency, I used Microsoft Copilot to create a job posting that I have then manipulated for the purposes of this activity that we're doing here to see how we can apply these guidelines. So here you see a typical job posting, the beginning of it with who the organization is and what the job is and the key responsibilities. And so this is a fair job posting. It's pretty clear, but let's see how it can be enhanced. So first of all, as you all know, it's now required that you add the wage in British Columbia, but regardless of whether it's required, it's a very good practice. And so making the wage clear is very important. You'll also notice here that I put a start date. You'd be surprised at the things that can make someone hesitant to apply to a job. And so if you make it clear that, okay, well, they might start by November 15th, but if they're eager to start sooner, then that's open. Also, you'll see in this job posting that the employer has taken the opportunity to really highlight what is special about their organization and give the student, give the graduate a glimpse into what it's like to work there even before they dig in and do their research, because it's still expected that they're going to research your organization further in applying. And then values. So many of the recent graduates are Generation Z, and many humans, most humans are very values driven, but that particular generation, they really want to walk the talk. And so putting your values there and making sure that you are making progress towards those values so that you're actually walking the talk can be a very helpful strategy. And that applies not only in job postings, but as you are interviewing candidates and as you are onboarding them and helping them be successful in the workplace. So that's an example of how you can apply these best practices. So that to the, what do you actually need your new hire to be able to do? This is so important for you so that you can communicate that clearly in your job postings and going on. So why do I have an airplane here? Well, you might know that this airplane is a Cessna. I can't tell you the exact number that it belongs to it, but it's a Cessna. And it was designed and produced in the 1920s, and it is still used today. And so we might want to have a really fancy latest plane with all the bells and whistles, but it's important that you figure out what is your Cessna, what is the basic thing that you need in order to transport people and goods from one place to the other. And so dig into whether you really need someone to do all of the things on your job posting, or whether there are some core things that are the most important and you can develop their skills from there. So let's again have a look now at the later part of the job posting, the part where you talk about what is the job and what qualifications are you looking for this particular opportunity. So here again, this is fine. It's pretty clear. And there are some bachelor's degrees that a person could have to be qualified for this. I want to point out something that's really important when you're communicating what's needed. So excellent verbal and written communication skills. Communication is a very broad set of skills. There's, of course, listening, talking, reading, writing, and then it breaks down even further from there. And so if you can identify what is it that you need the person to do with their communication skills, then that can be very helpful for them to tell you what they're able to do in their application. So when I then made some changes to this job posting, and I'm not familiar with the ins and outs of a winery other than having toured some. So someone in the business could probably make even better changes to this. But here we've been specific about the types of equipment that the things they would need to be able to do technically. Most importantly, you'll notice here, bachelor's degree in chemistry, biology, food sciences, or related combination of education and experience. Even a tip as to how to make the case that what they bring makes them qualified for your job. This can help a graduate know that, okay, I can apply for this and I will be taken seriously. And then we've taken the communication skills and we've broken this down so that it makes it a little more directly connected to what the work is. What will they need to be good at? And then this gives you the opportunity to assess it and then think about, okay, well, they're able to do this part of the job, and then we can see how we can develop this person from there to grow within the organization. So that's the kind of thing that you want to be doing with your job postings, your interviews, your onboarding. So one of the best practice guidelines was use a competency model. So I know that you're all in large and medium-sized organizations. You probably already have a competency model, a way of describing what the person needs to be able to do the job. UVic, Co-op and Career, has a very well-developed competency model. And so you can find these if you're wanting to build your own competencies or describe competencies. You might find this helpful in spurring some ideas. This is also, if you're looking to redefine some of your competencies, that's a place where generative AI can also be a helpful tool. If you describe the work that needs to be done and ask, what kind of competencies would be necessary to achieve this work? That can give you some other ideas as well. And we'll talk more about that as we go on. I'm going to pause and see if anyone has any questions at this point. Elsa?
Nothing in the chat or the Q&A so far.
Great. Okay. And so I was recently listening to a radio talk, and they had one of my colleagues, Lisa Taylor, talking, and I thought her point really hit home for me. She was talking about mature workers, and I thought what she says in her book is also very applicable to new graduates. I think this approach, we are very busy, all of us, in taking on new hires. And we want them to be able to walk in the door and immediately do all the things that we need them to do. And so it's important that you look at, okay, what qualifications do you need them to walk in the door and be able to be competent in right away? And what are you willing to develop? And these are new graduates who bring all of the things that you mentioned at the beginning, and being able to look at what you can invest in, even just being willing to offer them clear feedback as they develop and learn your ways of doing things, and how to work with your clients and your products, and building on their strengths. So this can be an approach that helps you look at how you can attract and hire and retain new graduates. And to the generative AI, I know that my colleague Kare did an excellent session on generative AI, and I'm certainly not going to repeat that, but I thought it might be helpful to look at generative AI in these best practice guidelines. So I thought you might be interested to see that this is the message that we currently, as co-op and career at UVic, this is the message that we currently give to students. And we have a whole web page with how they can use generative AI effectively in their job search activities. And what I like to approach this with students as is, how can you be an activator of generative AI rather than being activated by it? I was recently meeting with a couple of students who dropped in to see me, and one of the students quite sincerely looked at me and said, "Do I need to be using Gen AI to keep up and be competitive?" And this was, you know, a typical student in my program area that has strong critical thinking skills, was really looking at the ethics of the situation. And that's the majority of students that I meet with. They want to be successful in their career. They want to be ethical and use their good strengths to make a positive difference. And so when thinking about how this fits in with the best practices that we're talking about today, I think it's important that you be clear about your use of generative AI. So if you in your organization are using generative AI to accomplish certain goals, you might even write that into your job posting. If we think about it as a tool that we want to use to the best advantage of our communities and our organizations, then that's a way that it could be approached. And I look forward to, and there's one other thing I wanted to touch on this particular note while we're here. And that is, I was recently contacted by an employer who wanted to come to this session today. And his business is currently in the process of hiring 2 computer science students. And their big concern is, how do we, because they need to do virtual interviews, how do we make sure that we are hiring the student that we think we're hiring and not generative AI, that the person is not just putting their resume and cover letter through and making it speak. So one of the things that we constantly teach our students is that that's not going to result in success for them. So we're discouraging, you know, that kind of use of generative AI and rather using it to show their best strengths. But you will still have this conundrum of, how do you make sure that you're screening and hiring someone who can actually do the work that you want? And so building in what you would expect of your hires could be a way of including that in your hiring process. And I look forward to what you talk about when you have your discussions, and if you have any suggestions in addition. I will also just add one other little thing. Here at Career Services, every year we do a practice interview model for students applying to medical school. And it's a very well-organized and rigorous process that the universities do for the students. And one of the things that they do is they make sure that the student appears on the screen, their hands and their face, and they manage that in order for the person not to be using other resources in the room. So, you know, there's many ways of approaching this, and I look forward to what you just talk about in your discussion groups. And so then the final best practice that we had was connect with students before they graduate. And so by show of hands, I wonder how many of you already do this practice? Thanks, Sarah. And Slavica? I hope I said that correctly. That's great. And so you have many opportunities to connect with students before they reach the point of graduation. And I'm sure you can speak to the benefits of doing that. If you have little time and resources for it, then you can choose the activities that you can participate in. So for example, those of you who hire co-op students, you have probably already been asked to participate in mock interview clinics. This is where we give students the opportunity to do a short actual job interview with a real employer and then get some immediate feedback. And we've been doing this for many years now. And not only the students talk about what a valuable experience it is, but the employers over and over tell us how valuable it is for them. And it's often a pre-screening. There have been students that have done a mock interview with a particular employer and then gone on to apply for a job, and that student has already made a great impression and they end up being hired into a job. But they certainly get a wonderful opportunity to learn from you. And so I really encourage that. Also, information meetings. So in career services, one of the things we emphasize for students in their career development is networking and learning from those who are currently in the field. So if you would like to connect with students and you're not sure exactly how, please contact us. You're going to have Ailsa's contact information. And if you reach out and say, oh, I would love to do one of these activities here, how can I do that? Ailsa will be happy to connect you with the person who can make that a reality for you. And I mentioned on here a couple of our major career fairs. The High Tech Fair is a very successful way for employers to connect with students with those kinds of skills. And we are very excited that we're currently planning our first in-person major career fair since the pandemic. So stay tuned for that. There are career panels that you can participate in where you and colleagues talk about a particular area. There's this employer in residence opportunity with engineering and computer science students. And again, you can reach out to Ailsa and she'll be happy to put you in touch with those students. And then of course, the ultimate is hiring a co-op student within our co-op program. And we would be happy to, if you are not currently a co-op employer yet, we would be happy to connect you with the co-op program most related to your type of work and the students that would be the best fit for your organization. So now we're going to give you an opportunity to talk to one another and look at how you can use what we've been talking about, share what you're already doing that are successful actions, and discuss if there are ways that you can adopt and or adapt these best practices that would work really well in your organizations. We're going to give you 10 minutes in order to have these discussions. And yes, I think we can even take longer. Let's take 12 minutes for these discussions. And because sharing with one another is the way that we can adopt and adapt in these unusual times. And so Ailsa is going to assign you to small groups of 3. And please, I think Ailsa is pasting these questions into the chat so that you can make a copy. The best practice guidelines are going to go into the chat before you go into your breakout rooms. so that you can capture those best practices and discuss how you currently use those best practices and how you might adopt or adapt things we've talked about going forward. And then we'd love to hear some of your successful activities when we come back. I'll just give a moment for that to go into the chat. And now I'm putting Elsa. Oh, wonderful. There are the breakout rooms. And oh, right. Now, I am very interested in hearing any ideas that you came up with in your discussion that we could add to this particular sort of presentation or list of best practices. I'll go through room by room and ask you for any thoughts you want to share with the larger group. And what I would greatly appreciate is when you have a moment to pop your points that you want to share with others into the chat, because Ilsa's going to copy the chat at the end so that we might be able to put together just a little list of things that we came up with as a group. And so in room number 1, we had Christina, Meg, and Sarah. And would any of you like to unmute and talk about anything that you came up with? Or you may also simply put things into the chat. Oh, hello, Sarah.
I can unmute. I think one of the best practices that I sort of gleaned from this is just to make the language of the things that we're requiring be a little more specific. So we often just put excellent written and spoken communication, but we don't really tie it to anything. So that was a really great tip that I just picked up from this webinar.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sarah. Would anyone else from room number 1 like to add comments?
I would just add, and we talked about it in our group, that when Sarah commented about that, I linked it to Kari's session yesterday when she was talking about how important it is to help students to reflect on their various competencies and how to articulate it, so that it's similar but yet different, and yeah, anyways, we made that connection.
Wonderful. Thanks, Meg.
And just to add, we haven't really discussed this, but I work in co-operative CFU, so it feels like our role or my role ends when students complete co-op. But I'm looking at the last practice on the list, and I think it's really important to connect with the students before they graduate, just to recap in a sense what they learned in co-op and how they could take that into their future jobs.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for that suggestion, Christina. And as we go into the next room, if you would be kind enough to type your point into the chat if you want to share it. So room 2, we had Emma and Sarah in there. Anything that you would like to share?
Sarah and I, yeah, we shared that, connecting with the future new graduates or the students before their graduation through quite a wide variety of different routes, because you never know what a student may attend, or somebody may be more likely to attend a career fair versus, say, a meeting or in person. that was a good way to connect and make those connections. We also had a bit of a discussion on the AI use and how, as you mentioned, you can ensure that the person showing up to work is kind of the same, had the same representation of their skills and their interview, and how there's a lot of movement to in-person interviews these days. Yeah, those are kind of some of our key takeaways, I think.
Thank you so much, Emma. And yeah, that very important comments. And then for room number 4, we had Allison, Jacqueline, and Slavka speaking together. Any comments from the 3 of you?
We had a mixture of manufacturing and local municipal government. So it was an interesting conversation for sure. We do a lot of the competency-based questions, and the students do come to us better prepared when they do have co-op learning through their college or through university. So that is much easier to see when they've actually practiced these questions. I would say connecting before students graduate is great. We do that a lot. We've been doing that for, at AML, we've been doing that for at least 8 years, probably more than that. We do tend to go to all the mock interviews and co-op sessions, even just for the networking piece. And it does seem to pay off. If I look in our business here, I would say probably 70% of the people that we've hired in the last year came to us through connecting through UVic or Camosun or locally.
Fabulous, Slavka. And I just remembered the question I was going to give to Emma, and I'll ask you. So I know we have large and medium organizations represented in the room. How do you manage the time to attend to the variety of events? Because I can see that being a really important strategy. What are some things that you do to make that possible within your organizations?
We actually do a lot in terms of encouraging people who are new to the kind of engineering or manager roles. So they also get that practice that they wouldn't necessarily get elsewhere. And so they do interviews with me, but then when they are kind of ready to go on their own, mock interviews with UVic are a really great avenue for them to kind of get that experience as well. And for me, it's just I know I'm going to get a lot of benefit from connecting with these students. So I kind of find it super rewarding here too.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing that. Anybody else in room 4 that would like to share? And so I am just going to share the employer that I mentioned to you, what they are doing at their business. And he describes it as they're using more of what he calls the fuzzy skills. And so this is someone in a small business, 50 or fewer employees, and they are working to hire 2 new computer science grads. So finding out something that the candidate is passionate about and getting them to describe it and giving them an opportunity to unpack that is one of the things they're doing. Yes, and so making it more like what many of you were talking about, more competency-based, more measurable behaviors that you can see, and digging into what the students' strengths and passions are so that they see them as a person. So there are some great strategies. And now I would like to, now go back to our slide. And so if you would like to post to hire a recent graduate, you can do that using the Co-op and Career Portal. And you can create an account and add your job posting if you've not done that before. And Elsa is very good at supporting employers who are posting for the first time. And you can reach out. And any comments that you want to add about that, Elsa?
No comments at all. Just to know that, yeah, we do approve every employer who wants to post to our board. So yeah, there is a process where you have to register for an account, and then we will manually review it. So if you have a really quick timeline, it's best to send an email as well, so that we can make sure to get it prioritized quickly. Otherwise, it can take about 1 to 2 business days to get going.
Thanks so much. And are there any remaining questions that we can answer?
Nothing posted in the Q&A or the chat at this point.
Pardon me?
There's nothing posted in the Q&A or the chat at this point.
Thank you very much, Elsa. I just want to say thank you so much for your active participation in this session. Like I say, I invite any of you in the room or any people watching the video in future to reach out, and we'll be happy to connect you with the part of Co-op and Career that can most support you as an employer to connect with our students and graduates. And thank you very much. And I turn things over now to Karima.
All right, so that was fabulous. Thank you so very much. I want to thank Joy and Elsa for sharing valuable tips on how to engage graduating students at UVic. I hope that all of you are taking away key strategies that will help you with filling your talent pipeline.